Perfect. Okay, and we are recording. Great. Wait until people come in. Good morning, everyone. We're just opening up the virtual doors, and so we'll wait a couple of minutes until we have everyone in. And then I will do a formal introduction and introduce you to the lovely Sara Putt, and then we'll be cracking on. We'll give it a few minutes, okay, Sara?
Yeah, that's fine by me.
Thank you. Great. Hi, Enrique. I love it when people are like, morning from sunny Beckenham.
I think it's sunny everywhere this morning, isn't it?
I know. Morning, Rachel. Good morning, everyone. Okay. You've been finding that you can start off Zoom meetings on the dot, Sara, or you?
No, usually it kind of slips 5 minutes.
Morning, Alicia and David and Sarah Connor. Hi, thanks for joining us. Great. There we go. See, Sara, the love for the fridge is coming in already.
If only it were real. At the end of lockdown, I could open the bottles.
You know what would be amazing if you had like if you could somehow Photoshop a picture of Edwina and Eddie on there as well.
Or just get them to do my workshops, yeah. A whole different vibe.
So good. Okay, we have lots of people. I know. Okay, it's very funny, isn't it? It's very fun. Okay, let's crack on then. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nia Hughes, and I'm an organising official for the London production division of Bectu. We are joined this morning by the lovely Sara Putt, who has been so helpful to us during lockdown, and I believe this is our 6th webinar together. Wow. On networking and also negotiating. The way that we're going to run the webinar is you'll see a chat function at the bottom of your screens and a Q&A function as well. Sarah's going to do a presentation, and then we'll be opening up to a Q&A towards the end. Please keep your chats to the chatting, or the chatting to the chat function. If you have any useful links that you'd like to share with us this morning, please put them in there. And then if I could ask you kindly to put the questions in a clear format in the Q&A. I will be back at the end once Sarah's done the initial presentation, and then, yeah, as I said, we can go through the Q&A then. We just want to put it out there that on a lot of these webinars that we've had a huge number of questions, and because of time restraints, unfortunately, we might not be able to cover everything, but hopefully we'll be able to cover as much as possible this morning in order to help you out. Sara Putt, thank you very much. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nia, and thank you for inviting me, and welcome to everybody. Thank you for taking time out of a very hot sunny day. So hopefully we can be at least a little entertaining. So today I'm going to talk to you in essence about networking, about building networks, but the things you need to put into place first, really, before you can effectively do that. As some of you may know, I'm an agent for behind the camera talent in my day job, which I have been doing for about 30 years now. So an awful lot of this is just based on the things I've seen, the things I've experienced, the pitfalls I've fallen into over the years. And I think, it's particularly challenging at the moment because people feel a lot of the time very isolated and very disconnected, and are struggling to work out how they can build that community, build networks in order that they're kind of ready to go as the world opens up again. So hopefully some of this helps. And as Nia said, we'll certainly take questions as wide ranging as you wish them to be at the end. So let us kick off. So really, I think before building networks and before kind of working out who it is you want to network with and to what end you want to network, which is really just another term for building communities, building relationships, is what is your brand and how and to whom is it communicated, and how and to whom do you want to communicate it? And when I say what is your brand, I mean, what is it that you are selling into the industry? Who are you? What's your unique selling point? Whatever job it is you do, what is it about the combination of your personality, your skill set, your talents that makes you unique? And it's worth having a think about that before you kind of work out how and where you want to build those networks. So in essence, what does your online poster say? If people are to think about you and some of the things you're saying, perhaps on a CV or in emails or when contacting people, how is that manifested by what you actually do, either in the real world or online, predominantly as we are at the moment? So these are some of the phrases that people use a lot in covering letters, in CVs, when they're putting themselves forward. And I think it's what I'm trying to get across is it's about show, don't tell. And how are you going to do that? So if you say that you're passionate, and most people use the word passionate quite liberally when promoting themselves, when building those networks, how is that demonstrated? How is that demonstrated on your social media? How is it demonstrated by the things that you demonstrate interest in? So you're showing the world that you're passionate about your job, your department, the industry you work in. People say that they're hardworking and a team player. Are you prepared to get involved? Are you demonstrating that you are that team player? And attention to detail. Again, another phrase I hear a lot of, and you see a lot of on CVs, I have great attention to detail. So are you show ready? And we're going to talk about this in terms of CVs, etc. Are you kind of prepped and ready to go when somebody wants a copy of your CV? Works well alone, i.e. kind of motivated, etc. What have you achieved during lockdown? And, don't get me wrong, I know it's been a difficult period for an awful lot of people, but I'm sure you have had successes. I'm sure you have done stuff. I'm sure you have moved forward in some ways. Reference that, talk about it. Excellent communication skills. Well, we've all been having to demonstrate those in a different way, through Zoom, through webinars. How has that been for you? What can you say about that? And how is that demonstrable up on social media? Time management, again, how do you actually show that you're great at time management rather than just telling people that you're good at it? Reliable. I think we've seen with a lot of people how much they are there for others. And for me, that's a huge quality. It's a huge quality on any shoot, in any production, in any production company. And I think people have really demonstrated that capacity to be reliable, to be there for others. And problem solving. You guys are an amazing industry of incredibly talented, creative problem solvers. And I think people have been finding remarkably creative solutions. Who knew that we would be having, film festivals online? Who knew that we would be having, drinks parties online and big conferences? So, I think there have been some fantastically creative solutions. And have you been involved in those? If so, talk about it. And what is your online fingerprint? Literally that, if you Google yourself, what comes up? Does it bring up your website, your social media feeds, a show reel? And really what you're looking to work out in terms of kind of building your brand to put out there and create networks is that message consistent? Is it saying the same thing? Is your brand consistent? When we all go and purchase, in a retail sense, good brands, they are reliable brands. They're brands whereby we know what we're getting and what we're buying into. Does it truly highlight your skills, your social media presence? And also, what does it say about you as a person? Is it saying what you want it to say, or is the kind of personal stuff coming through that perhaps you would prefer to remain private, and you really need to look at your privacy settings, etc.? So just make sure that the information that is out there in the world, online or otherwise, is, as far as you have control over it, saying good stuff about you. And the first thing around that really is going to be a CV. So I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about some do's and don'ts around CVs, because I think people get into the elephant trap of thinking a CV is a kind of one-off document and it sits there and you just send it out to people. It's not. It's a living document. There's the job or the opportunity, and there's your CV. And those two need to match as much as possible. So the CV demonstrates why you fit that particular job or opportunity. So you're going to need to tweak your CV to each specific job, to each specific opportunity. What I would suggest is that you have a master template at home of all the things you do, all the jobs you've done, all the webinars you've attended or panels you've sat on. Every time you do something that is industry related, pop that on that master CV. And then you can play with it when you need to get it out to somebody or to a company. And you can put the most relevant information at the top, because that top half of the first page, that's the power packed bit. That's where your big hitters need to be. So you don't want the fact that you were a St. John's cadet when you were 14 years old at the top of that CV. That's not relevant unless it's a CV that's relating to a health and safety job. But if you see what I mean, just make sure that the information that is relevant to that job in terms of things that you have done is right up there at the top. And if you don't feel you've got directly relevant experience, make sure you find evidence of similar skills in other areas of the industry, similar skills in other industries. A lot of people, particularly newer entrants to the industry, kind of fall into the trap of everything I did before I entered film and television is irrelevant, and I'm not going to mention it. All those months I did of working in a Wetherspoons pub, quite frankly, for me, befits anybody to work in this industry. Anybody who's done anything customer facing, retail, management, any of those skills, IT, they all have a relevance to different parts of our industry. So just think slightly diversely, slightly laterally about your skill set and use that in a creative way. And be proud of your title and make it job appropriate. Don't put 15 different titles at the top of your CV, as I sometimes see, hoping that it's a catch-all. Make it job specific. And please, less is more. 2 sides of A4 at the very most, and make every piece of information on that CV useful. And the CV is also going to show who you've worked with, because your personal relationships are your career currency, because those are the people who are going to say great things about you. And this industry, as I'm sure many of you are aware, is pretty small, and people chat to each other. And people like to work with people who've worked with people they know. It kind of gives you credibility. So be aware that those human relationships are very important. So if you've worked with people who are going to say great things about you, make sure their names are there against those specific productions or production companies. Name those exec producers, series producers, directors, heads of department, whomsoever it may be. Because as we all know, those potential employers will call those people. They'll call the people that you've worked with first and foremost, probably rather than your listed referees, or rather than phoning you up if you've put references on request to get those referees. So anybody you do name, feel confident that they are going to say good stuff about you, because that's the basis of trust. And a CV, in a very obvious way, also enables potential employers to identify, verify, and contact you, to know who you are, to know where they can get hold of you. So you want your job title, you want your email address. I would strongly suggest, unless there's a very good reason not your physical address. Your physical address is going to allow people to make judgments about you geographically. So, for instance, if there's a job up at Leavesden Studios and you live in Southeast London in Greenwich, and they're going to interview 6 people for this particular role, whatever it might be, but they've got 7 great CVs, and your CV is one of those 7 great CVs. And somebody in the production office looks at those CVs and says, oh, well, this person lives in Greenwich. They're not going to want to commute every day up to Leavesden because they don't know that your aunt actually lives up in Leavesden and you can stay with her. They will make a judgment and they will cut you out of the running, potentially, rather than letting you in the room. So only put your address or a base in Manchester, Glasgow, Bristol, wherever it may be, if it is of value, if it is actually going to be something that you will sell yourself with. It's that less is more thing. Nothing should be on the CV unless it's actually going to positively sell you for that opportunity, for that role. Your mobile phone number, obviously, any website connections, etc. So it's really about constructing a good, easily accessible, pleasant looking CV. We work in the visual and creative industries, and I see so many CVs that are just bamboozling. They are just literally, as a design document, so unattractive and so hard to access, or so dense and packed with information that you kind of feel put off from them. So allow that CV to breathe. Allow it some space. Put obviously your relevant credits and your relevant credits up at the top on that first page, the key people you've worked with, any practical equipment experience that is going to be relevant to that opportunity, and other skills, languages. It's amazing sometimes people who speak 2 or 3 languages fluently, which I think A, can be incredibly useful, and B, says a great deal about that person. They put them right at the back of the CV, and it's like people don't know. So if it's relevant or feels it might be relevant, put it up there right at the top. Visas, any visas you have, driving license, and please, 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 driving license is spelt with a C in this country, and so many people do the spell check, but it's the American keyboard and they spell it with an S. And I know that it drives a lot of producers and line producers absolutely bananas. So please, driving license with a C. Any references, your name, email address, job titles. Don't list every short film or unpaid job if, you know, at the beginning of your career you did a couple of those, unless those jobs are award-winning or notable in some way. Have confidence. Don't throw everything at this CV. It's about what's relevant. It's about what's impressive. It's about what's going to sell you best. Even if that's a few credits rather than lots, if you're early on in your career, people appreciate that. It's quality, not quantity. And if you're using one of those personal mission statements, we'll come on to talk about this, make it unique to you. Make sure it is not too general. And avoid creating ugly, messy, cluttered CVs. I have a constant kind of debate with members of the camera department who feel that CVs should be in landscape because I think they see the world in 4:3. I've kind of given in, that's fine. I would always prefer to see CVs in portrait form. I just think when they're in a pile in a production office, they sit more neatly, they're easier to pull out because your name, your contact details is going to be at the top. Avoid clutter, be honest about what you've been doing. If it's dailies, say that it's dailies, don't over egg that pudding. Remove pictures, clapperboards, microphones, they just take up valuable space. And as your career develops, you're going to need that space for really useful information about what you've been doing, what your job involved, and who you've been working with. So really, unless you are applying for a job as a presenter or a supermodel, I don't think we need pictures of you. And dates, people get very obsessed with dates and they put very specific dates, you know, 21st of March 2019 to 3rd of June 2019. In the freelance world, everybody has gaps between jobs anyway. Some longer, some shorter, some by choice, some because they have to do other things like, you know, they're bringing up children or they're acting as a carer. And don't fudge that, own it, that's fine. Part of the point of being freelance is that you get to pick when you work and for whom you work. So dates aren't really relevant. And if you don't put dates on, it also gives you more of an opportunity to play around with those credits and put the most impressive ones up at the top rather than hiding them away because, you know, you did the job 2 or 3 years ago. So do be brief, make use of that white space, allow it to kind of look good, for it to breathe, for the information to be easily accessible to the person who's reading it. Please use a readable typeface like Arial or Calibri or Times New Roman, and font size, please make it readable. Do not think, oh, I know how I can fit all of this amazing information about myself on 2 pages. I'll just make the font very, very tiny. Because a lot of people with middle-aged eyes are going to be reading that CV and they're probably going to be feeling slightly grumpy if they can't actually read, even with their glasses on, whatever it is you've written. So don't cut and paste carelessly. Literally print that CV off. See how it looks when you print it off. See how, you know, all of that area of shading works when you have to print it off and it uses a load of ink from your inkjet printer. And also, how does your beautifully created CV that you've done on a Mac look on a PC? Just make sure that it translates and that you're not cutting and pasting things that are then tabulating in a really awkward and weird way when you're sending it on to somebody. Don't use the generic mission statements. Don't use too many typefaces or colors, they just bamboozle. Or use, as I said, a tiny typeface. So just to talk a little bit about personal introduction, which is, you know, there for your CV. You know, it's that paragraph at the top of your CV describing yourself, but it can also be, you know, the basis of what you're going to say in this email when you're kind of building your network with people, or even what you're going to want to say on the phone. And to go back to what I was saying right up top about passionate and works well in a team and motivated and attention to detail, they're all fine, but they're all very, very generic statements. And what you need to do if you're going to use this paragraph, and it's going to help you in all sorts of ways, is to try and get specific and unique to you. So it can be great. It's a concise overview to get people interested, so that it'll make them want to read on, like a kind of trailer for the movie, into your CV. It needs to be written with the employer in mind. It should be more about what you're giving and what you have to offer than what you want to get. Again, you see a lot of those paragraphs that say, you know, I have been working as a set decorator on period films. I'm very passionate about what I do, and I now want to be a production designer, or I want to work in a different genre, or that's all fine. And I think, you know, relevant probably to the format of an email or a letter. But in that little mission statement, it's about what you want rather than, as I say, about what you're giving, what you have to offer. And rather like your CV, it needs to be dynamic. It needs to be edited to fit specific jobs, opportunities, or platforms. So this is the kind of typical thing that we see. I'm passionate about working in film and have always wanted to be a production manager, which is something I achieved during my time in college. I'm hardworking, punctual, and a good team player with a passion for writing scripts. Now, if this person is approaching, you know, the industry to try and get a job as a production coordinator or production secretary, this to me is a really kind of pointless paragraph to put at the top of the CV and just isn't going to sell them. Passionate about working in film? Everybody who works in film and TV is passionate about it. God knows we don't do it for the money. So you're not really saying anything unique about yourself. And if you're applying for a job as a production coordinator, don't tell people you wanted to be a production manager. It's that, be job specific. What is it about production coordinating? What do you have to offer to that role? And saying, you know, it was something I've already done when I was at college. It's that knowing the difference between what you did in education and what you're doing in the real world. Being hardworking and punctual, they're a given. And if you're going to reference them, show me. Tell me how you have demonstrated that, rather than just telling me that's who you are. And the passion for writing scripts, again, might be interesting in terms of your interests and what else you like doing, but it's not the most relevant thing. It is not directly relevant to the job that you're trying to get. So something like this, I think, works a lot better. Production trainee with experience of working across a range of short films, including period, drama and sci-fi, commercials and music videos, fluent in French with a dual Swiss-Canadian passport and a clean driving license. As I put at the other side, it's short, it's clear, it's very specific, it's pretty unique, and it's factual. And I think people really stumble over this because they feel to write one of these paragraphs to put at the top of a CV or in an email is basically bigging themselves up, and it feels embarrassing and it feels like showing off. If it's factual, it's not. It's just stating who you are and the range of skills you have. And if you find it really difficult, get one of your mates in the industry to write it for you. 3 sentences, just talking about who you are and what you have to offer and what experience you've got that demonstrates that. Honestly, it's worth practicing. It really is. Nobody gets it right first time. It is a difficult thing to do. But if you can nail it, then it can be a very, very useful paragraph to have up your sleeve for your CV, for profiles and jobs boards and your Twitter bio, but also for that networking introduction, be that by email, be that on the phone, be that face to face, you know, when we're all out there and allowed to be face to face again. So you've got the CV, you've got that statement going, and you're now kind of really building that network. And you kind of need to know who it is you want to be contacting, what kind of people are going to be useful to you and you want to build relationships with, and where they hang out, and what areas of social media they're on. And the question I get asked a lot is, how often? How often should I be contacting people? And my view of that is obviously not every week, not every couple of weeks, but I think 3 or 4 times a year is absolutely fine. And certainly when you've got something new to say, use that as a reason for contacting and getting in connection with your network. So if you've just done a new job, or you've just worked with a new piece of equipment, or there's something you want to say, or you've been on a panel, or you've appeared on a webinar, those are all reasons to be contacting people. So 3 or 4 times a year, plus those points at which something relevant and new has happened to you. And please don't expect everybody to write back, and don't feel downcast when they don't. Because honestly, it's hit its target way more than you would imagine or think it has. I remember years ago asking a friend of mine who worked in computer sales, nothing to do with film or TV, about what kind of percentage return they expected on mail shots when they were promoting a new piece of kit or a new product. And she said, oh, about 5%. So they were sending off, you know, thousands of emails or flyers or whatever it was. And she said 5% was like really amazing. And I said 5% of people who will actually buy the product. She said, no, 5% of people who engage with us in any way. So you guys can do the maths. If you're sending off 50 emails, CVs, making 50 phone calls, leaving messages on voicemails, and you get a couple back, then you're doing really well. And that's just a general, it works the same in development. For the number of shows that most production companies develop, they will expect to get about a 5% return of interest from production companies. So it's a sort of general rule of thumb. And I say it to comfort you, because it just proves it's about kind of being consistent with this and doing it a lot and really working at building that network. Some practical stuff. What's the title of your email? Are you just putting hi or hello, or are you putting your name? Sara Putt, CV, June 2020. So that when people are scrolling through or doing a search, the title of your email will come up. You're making it easier for them to find you. And what's in your email signature? Are you effectively using your email signature? It's so useful if in that signature you have your mobile phone number, so that in the body of that email, I want to call you, I might have a job opportunity, there's your mobile phone number. I don't have to click onto an attachment, I don't have to search anywhere else. Make it easy for that person who might be about to give you work. And what's your email address? Is it your name? Is it relatively straightforward? Is it your name and a number? If it's a number, is it a number that tells the world what year you were born? And are you comfortable about that? So just make sure you're kind of thinking through these things. And in the body of this email or voicemail message, however you're contacting people, be clear and specific in your ask. Now, somebody who gets a lot of emails, which is lovely, a lot of the time I don't actually understand what is being asked of me. It's a lovely email with a CV and some stuff about who that person is, but I don't know whether they want me to pass that CV on to any of my clients. I don't know whether they want representation. I don't know whether they want to chat. I'm very unclear about what that ask is. And when approaching people to build relationships, I would always suggest ask for advice rather than work. When you're asking for work, it's a binary response. It's yes, I have work. No, I don't have work. And if it's no, I don't have work, then kind of that's the end of the conversation for now. But if you're asking for advice, you're starting to build a relationship. You're saying, particularly at the moment, maybe we could have a cup of coffee on Zoom. Maybe I could ask you a few questions because, you know, I'd really like at some point the opportunity to work with you, but I'd like some advice about how you build your teams, what people you're looking for when building teams, etc. Asking for advice elicits much more positive responses. One of the few good things about the period we've been through and are still going through, I would suggest, is that actually people are more open to being contacted. I think it is possible to build much more effective relationships at the moment because people have got a bit more time. And I think we all feel that sense of wanting to stay in and to build and develop our communities and our networks. I was talking to a young production manager the other day, and he'd actually contacted a lot of very high-end heads of production in the scripted world and had some very good responses and got some meetings on Zoom or phone calls. And I think it will be much harder when everybody's back in offices. So use this moment. And there are no geographical or access barriers. So use that and reach out to people and ask for advice, ask if you can have a chat. And I think you'll be surprised by getting some good responses. Make sure in however you're building this network, you have a database, a reference system that works for you. That can be a proprietary database that you purchase, you know, from the internet, or it can be as simple as, you know, a Word document, a PDF, or a spreadsheet. A lot of people I know use spreadsheets, but just make sure you know who your contacts are, what that network is, contact details, email addresses, when you last contacted them, what it was you said when you last contacted them. Be professional about it. Take that marketing side of your business. You know your brand, you know who you want your network to be, you know where you want to build that. Then be professional about how you are marketing into that network. Follow those you want to work with on social media. Much more important who you're following than who's following you, because that's where you pick up, and I'm sure you guys are all ahead of the game on this, but that's where you will pick up, you know, really interesting information that enables you to contact people, but also, you know, you can direct message them on Instagram, via Twitter, whatever it might be. You can build relationships that way. Comment on their achievements. If they've had stuff on TV, if they've been talking at a panel, comment on it. Be nice. Throw love at it. It makes a big difference. So the basics, yeah, don't do big mail shots that are impersonal. Make every email personal. It's hard work. It takes a longer time. But if it feels like a personal email and their name is at the top of it, dear so-and-so or hi so-and-so, and then you reference something that they've worked on or their company has done, then that makes a big difference. Be specific, as I said. What is your ask? What are you hoping to achieve by reaching out and establishing this contact? And if you get a response, and if you then have that phone call or an email back, whatever it might be, say thank you. It's another reason for making contact. Every time, say thank you. It feels nice. It really makes people feel appreciated. It makes a huge difference to them, but also it's another reason for being in contact. You know, I always say to people after interviews, when somebody's interviewed you, say thank you. When they turn you down for a job, and I've seen clients do this really effectively, say, obviously, I'm hugely disappointed, but I wish you well with the project and thank you for interviewing me. It was a great opportunity. And then so many times, because you've left them with a good taste in their mouth, because you've left them feeling good about you, if something goes wrong with that person that they were using, or the opportunity arises again, they'll be back on the phone to you because you left them feeling good. All the way through this, in terms of building networks, think about the effect that you are having on the person at the other end, the effect you're having on the person who is potentially going to be employing your services. And these are some of the sort of cover letter contact peeves that we hear from our heads of department. People who kind of make approaches but don't really understand what the job actually entails or what that person or company actually does. We see it a lot within the agency when people who are applying for jobs as, an intern or an assistant, they literally have no idea what we do. So they'll kind of arrive and say things like, well, I presume you work with actors, you're an agent? It's like, really, it's not that hard. You Google us, our website's the first thing that comes up. Just have a look at it. The website tells you what we do. It's there on the tin kind of thing. So make sure you've done your research when you're approaching people, individuals or companies. Don't lie about your skills or give an inflated sense of the experience gained. It's just not worth it. It might get you through the door, but it will unravel so quickly. And don't be unclear about what you're asking. And please, rather like your CV, when you're approaching people, check that grammar, check that spelling, and make sure that you are targeting your applications, targeting your networking, your relationship building in the right direction, and you know why you're doing it. Not just because you think that person's a big cheese and somehow they might open their address book to you and that'll solve all your problems. It has to be more specific than that when you're building networks. Telephone etiquette. Another one I think people don't sometimes think about enough. The same rules apply as contacting people generally. Make sure that you're somewhere that you can be quiet and speak properly, and make sure it's not when you're in the middle of Sainsbury's or it's 8 o'clock at night and they're feeding their family. And work out what it is you want to say before you pick the phone up and make that call, and what it is you want to say, both if you have to leave a message or if they answer the phone. And I think people get very caught out by, they just presume it's going to be an answer phone and they can leave a message on a voicemail. And then if that other person that they've been trying to get hold of actually picks up the phone, they're completely wrong-footed and kind of stumble all over the place and have no idea what it is they actually wanted to say in the first place because they're so taken aback. And in terms of your own voicemail, please, 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 and so many people I know haven't done this at all sorts of levels, record a professional voicemail message on your phone, because then when I or anybody else phones you, I know I've got you. I know I've got Jane Smith and I'm after Jane Smith. If I just get a generic Virgin or Vodafone or whomsoever voicemail message saying the number you have called is not available, I don't actually know that I'm talking to the person I want to talk to. So if I've got a job on offer, I might just not bother leaving a message. I might just move on to the next person. Whereas if I know I've got you, trust me, I am more likely to leave a message. Always answer your phone, as if it might be your dream employer. I think, again, we've all, most of us have one phone and, our mums are phoning on it, our kids are phoning on it, and potential employers are phoning on it. So just kind of be professional if you don't recognize those numbers in how you're answering that phone. And please check your voicemail regularly. And I know I've fallen into this trap. Vodafone, and I'm sure all the other networks, don't always tell you when you've got voicemails. Suddenly pings out 2 days later, by which time that job, that opportunity has disappeared. So get just into the habit of checking your voicemail, and then reply to messages in a timely fashion, the same day or the next of the email being received or the message being received. Being busy on a production isn't an excuse. You know that things, certainly as we get back into production, things move quickly and you have to respond quickly. When I say keep splitting the atom, I mean everybody that you're seeing, chatting to, and building your network ask them if they would be prepared to suggest one or two other people for you to contact, and that you could use their name when contacting. That way, your network will build very, very quickly. And it's a very clear ask. Most people are happy to do it. So yeah, it's been great talking to you. Is there anybody else you recommend I talk to at the moment? And anybody that, you know, I could use your name when contacting, or you'd be prepared to share contact details or make an introduction to? No, then people are busy, people offer that up, and you may then have to just chase them a couple of times in order to get them to do it. As long as you do that politely, chasing them a couple of times is fine. People are busy, things go down their to-do list, that's understandable. Particularly at the moment, it does feel like everything takes slightly longer because we're doing it on Zoom and from our back bedrooms or our basements or wherever we're all placed in lockdown. But try to keep splitting the atom. It is a very effective way of building your network. And remember to be present. Keep your own profile up, you know, both in the physical world and in the virtual world. So at the moment, you know, while I think for a while we are going to predominantly remain in a virtual landscape when it comes to selling ourselves, building networks, and probably being interviewed as well. Make sure you are attending webinars. I know it can feel a bit overwhelming because there are so many webinars out there, but try to be specific about what's going to be useful to you. But your name will keep popping up, you know, on those webinars. You'll start, I've seen it happen, people chatting to each other in the chat section on Zoom and giving each other contact details and say, it'd be really lovely to talk to you offline. So relationships are being built. It's fantastic. And with so few barriers. Online panels, virtual film festivals, all of that. You know, attend what you can and what interests you, but be present, be out there. And consider mentoring, either being a mentor or being mentored, whatever feels, you know, appropriate and useful to you. And even if you're still at a relatively early stage, 5 to 10 years into your career, don't think you can't mentor. I think a lot of people feel it's something that you have to be in your 50s and hugely wise and experienced in order to be able to do. No, young people are great mentors, fantastic. You know, they have so many skills that are directly relevant, and their experience is directly relevant to younger people coming into the industry. And it's another way of building your network. You know, I've done quite a bit of mentoring, and I would say, and I've had fantastic mentors as well. And I would say that as a mentor, I get just as much out of that relationship as I have done as a mentee. So, you know, think about it. Think about it as another way of kind of connectivity and building relationships. As we were talking about, ask people for virtual tea, coffee, wine meets, you know, on Zoom, on FaceTime, whatever it may be. And kind of polish up your social media, because we have got the time to do that, or we certainly have had. And Zoom's a weird one, isn't it? I mean, if you'd have said to me in January this year that I would be here in front of the absolutely fabulous fridge, talking to a load of people I can't see and have no sense of your reactions, whether you're awake, whether you're asleep, whether you've gone out into the garden, you know, I just said, I couldn't do that. I can't do that. But I have become, as a lot of us have, much more confident on Zoom, because we've been doing it with our families, we've been doing it with our friends. You know, for me, I have to kind of put on work clothes and put some makeup on and kind of get myself show ready. So dress for the occasion, whatever that dress is for you, whatever is going to make you feel confident about your work persona. Make sure you do that on Zoom as much as you would if you were going into a physical meeting. You know, set the camera and the lights, choose your backdrop. It's quite fun. Make sure you're not hugely backlit so nobody can see your face and you're all in shadow. And keep doing it. It does get easier. You know, I'm absolutely evidence of this gets easier. And also, hands up, everybody finds the close of a Zoom meeting weird, because it's one of those things that in the physical world, you wander down the corridor, you get in the lift, you're having a chin wag, you kind of maybe exchange cards or information. At the end of a Zoom meeting, everybody's gone like that, pressing their leave button so they're not the sad soul left at the end when everybody else has gone. It's just weird. I think we have to accept it's very kind of alien to us as human beings. But just be yourself. You know, that's all you can be, and give of yourself, and give a positive and enthusiastic energy on Zoom. It will make a difference to those other people you're talking to, whether that's in an initial, contact, in terms of, building a new relationship within your network, or whether it's in a more formal interview technique. And for some people, hiding self-view really helps. They don't want to see themselves, because we all become slightly obsessed with looking at, how bad our hair looks, and whether during lockdown we have actually become like hamsters because we're stuffing so much into our cheeks. So do whatever helps you feel more confident about it. And keep in contact with that network. Once you build it, once you've built the start of a network, and that is a constant process, stay in touch with those key contacts occasionally, like I said, when you have an update, not just when you want work. Say nice things, update them on your experience, or maybe send a link to an article or a webinar or some information that they'll find useful. They're all reasons for contacting. They're all building your network. If you have people's phone numbers, send them a quick text with, there's this webinar coming up and I thought you might be interested in it. Here's the link. How are you doing? Shall we have a chat? You find reasons to be in contact with your network and take the lead. I'm mentoring a young writer at the moment, and she was feeling very isolated during lockdown and wanted to kind of establish contact with other writers. So we talked about her getting in contact with people and setting up just a kind of Zoom once a week where they got together and chewed the cud and talked about how they were feeling about the projects they were working on. And she's done it, and it's happening, and people are joining it, and she's really delighted. And I think she's amazed by how other people were too afraid to take the initiative, but were so delighted when she did. So be bold, be brave, take that leap of faith and get out there. What have you got to lose? And I think most importantly, in terms of building networks and creating networks, remember that this is a marathon, not a sprint. It takes time to build relationships. It takes time to build trust. It takes lots of points of contact. It's not a quick fix it. Networking is a long-term endeavor. So be structured about it, be disciplined, but don't expect too much of yourself. Don't expect it to return instant results. Sometimes it will if you're very lucky, but just kind of take on board, I hope, some of the things I've said and be structured about it, and you'll be amazed how successfully and how well your network, your community within the industry grows, I hope. So good luck and enjoy. I'm going to stop screen sharing now, and hopefully Nia is still in the building and hasn't fallen asleep yet. Nia, are you there?
I am here, yeah. I'm certainly not sleeping. What's that? But yeah, I was just thinking about how odd it is, because I'm desperately trying to get my barber to come over and cut my overruly mullet. And it's one of the reasons why I hide behind this Bectu comms image. Sara Putt, thank you so much again. And you've got new slides, which I think is great.
Yeah.
As always, you're just such a wonderful mind, I think. So to everyone else, I hope that was really useful to you, and I hope you get like a lot out of that session. Okay, we have a couple of questions. Helen's asking, can you have the slides afterwards? Yes, you can.
Fine.
Not a problem. I'll deal with that one, so that's done. What are your recommendations for joining a diary service, and how to join one?
I think my recommendations are, if that diary service is working in an area that you want to kind of build more of a network in and build more work from, and people who have had positive experiences with them, then I think that can be money well spent. I think now is probably a time, both with diary services and agencies, to be chatting to people and to be chatting about what they might be able to do for you and what criteria they'd be looking for in order to take somebody on, as we're building up again. I think at the moment, most of us in that representation model would be saying there's not a lot of work to go round. And the original thing about diary services is, they come from an age, because the company I originally bought was in fact just a diary service many years ago. They do come from an age when people had diaries they needed keeping because they didn't have mobile phones, email didn't exist, people couldn't be contacted. So at the end of the day, everybody phoned into a diary service to get information on where they were going the next day and where they needed to turn up and at what time. So I think it's about knowing what you want from that diary service and what they feel realistically they can offer, and having those conversations.
Yeah. And just in terms of kind of, because something that's come up quite a bit, I suppose, when someone moves away from, I don't know, say a low budget film, and all of a sudden they're finding themselves on something super popular that's just blown up, the opportunities that then just start naturally and organically coming through can be immense.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the best way to move diary services and also an agent?
To move between them, you mean?
Yeah. What would be the ethic? What would be the real
etiquette? Yeah. I think if you feel a relationship isn't working, then, there are two routes. Either if you just feel you wish that company or that agent was doing more for you, then go and have that conversation and say, look, I'm just not feeling this relationship is working. I don't feel you're calling me back. I don't feel I really have a relationship with you, and I wanted to get your take. And it may be that you can then have an honest conversation, and that agent will say, no, I'm sorry, I don't think it is working, and maybe you need to look elsewhere. And sometimes I think agents will say that, or they might say, look, actually I'm really sorry, I really feel I've dropped the ball, and give me the next 3 months and I will do better. I absolutely will do better. But if you just made up your mind and you feel you want to move and you want to move on, then, go and talk to the new agent, the new diary service. They will be prepared to do that discreetly. They will do that in confidence. So, absolutely go and talk to them. And if you then feel you can establish a relationship with them, when you've got that sorted in principle, then email, by phone, face to face, however you feel you want to do it. Unfortunately, it is a bit like breaking up with somebody, and it's never easy. Just go back to that previous company or agent and explain. It's nice if you can explain that you feel this new company deals more internationally, or has clients working more in the area that you're heading for. But be polite and grateful for the work they've put in, because a lot of agents, a lot of diary services put in a lot of work behind the scenes. But just be frank and end the relationship cleanly. Don't just do the stopping calling them, sign up with somebody else, but never actually hand your notice in over there. And honestly, people do that because they just don't want the confrontation, and it just gets everybody into all sorts of sticky messes. And it means potentially two different companies, and I have been in this position, two different companies are trying to sell the same client, and everybody ends up looking like an idiot.
Okay, amazing. This is coming back to the mentor section, actually, and someone saying, I want someone in my network, in my existing network, to be my mentor in the industry. How should I approach that?
I think that's great, and I think you absolutely should. I think it's about saying, look, I've been thinking about getting a mentor, and I'd really love it if you would consider being my mentor. And it's for these reasons I'm asking you. And, all I would be asking for maybe is just that we could have a sort of structured conversation for an hour once a month, because presumably if it's somebody in your network, you might have other interactions with them as well. It's like somebody I know asked me to be their mentor 2 or 3 years ago, and she's actually somebody I deal with on a professional basis, but we just set aside a time. We only do it probably 4 times a year of an hour, and that's her time to talk to me about the stuff she wants to talk about, she wants to thrash out, she wants some advice on. So I think people on the whole are very flattered. it might be worth, and you can kind of pick up lots of really useful information on the Screen Skills website, and I'm sure in many other places, about mentoring, because I think sometimes people who are asked to mentor are a bit intimidated by it. In principle, they're really flattered and they'd like to do it, but they don't really know what it involves if they've never done it before. So I think being able to say to somebody what your expectations, and maybe point them in the direction of, there's some really interesting templates we could maybe use to structure our relationship, and the Screen Skills website's got some really good information. I think that's helpful if people haven't actually been mentors before. But yeah, go for it.
Yeah, and just in terms of the mentors as well, Bectu ran a mentoring scheme last year, and so what we did was we got a crop of people who were quite established in their fields to become mentors, and then they had a mentor-mentee relationship over a couple of months. And I was just talking to someone about it the other day, and they just said it was so hugely successful.
Yeah.
And in terms of mentoring as well, I mean, I think just either a day or two in training, it makes a huge difference to their kind of confidence as well, in terms of what they should and shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. And the limits, the parameters around it.
Yeah.
And how it should be structured. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And also something, because it takes quite a lot of guts, doesn't it, to draft up that email and make sure that it's all correct and to send it off, or, even more guts to call.
Yeah.
These days. But I do think that, there are lifelong relationships that can be cultivated. It's almost like looking after a bonsai tree or something. And we were talking to Riccardo Bacigalupo, who I believe is an editor with you, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I was on a Zoom with him last night, and he was just saying how he met another editor called Eddie Hamilton.
Eddie Hamilton, the god, this is Eddie Hamilton, yeah.
Yeah, and it really started in the same way that we've just been discussing, like he reached out, and they formed a working relationship that is ongoing until this day. And he cites him as, and as his kind of mentor and the person who's had a huge influence on his career and in that sense his life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they can be just wonderful relationships. And I think in feeling nervous about sending that email, or even more in picking up that phone, it is that if you've got good judgment, and I'm sure you all have, and you would want somebody who is a decent and lovely human being to be your mentor, what are they going to do? They're not going to say, bugger off, never darken my door again. How dare you ask somebody of my status to be a mentor? Absolutely. I have never, ever heard of anybody saying anything like that. They might say, I'd love to, but I'm about to start on a crazy busy production, and I don't think I could kind of give you the headspace you deserve, but I'd suggest so-and-so. They might say, that's incredibly flattering. I'm really quite intimidated by that because I've never done it before. So there might be some sort of negative responses, but more about their position, not about the fact you've asked them.
Yeah, and also I think it's important, isn't it, to remember or be mindful. We never know what's going on in people's lives.
Yeah.
We never know. We never know how much space people have, and that space might fluctuate. And so don't be downhearted if you get a response which wasn't what you were hoping for, because you just try again and get back on the horse, and that's also a sign of resilience. And
a long time ago, when I was a very, very baby agent, I asked then, she's retired now, very senior agent, I did exactly that. I wrote to her and asked if I could come for a chat. I didn't actually ask her to be my mentor, but that I hugely admired her and would really value her advice. And she never got back to me, and I felt really crushed by it, and like about that big. And then I kind of met her about 5 years later, and I got to know her, and we had a couple of glasses of wine at one point, and I said, I didn't know whether you ever got my letter. I think it was in the days of letters, when I wrote to you. And she kind of blushed furiously, and she said, I did, but I just didn't know how to respond, because I really couldn't see what I had to offer you. And you seem to be doing so well, and you seemed really confident, and I just thought, no, she doesn't really need somebody like me. So she hadn't responded because she just felt she wasn't somehow worthy of being somebody's mentor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Well, listen, you have become a hugely successful agent. And this is the next question is, how would you like to be approached about someone who wants to come on your books?
Just directly, with some work, with some material, with a reason as to why they feel they would like representation at this stage, what it is they hope to gain from representation, or if they're making a move between agents, why they are looking to make that move, and what it is they would hope to achieve by being with us rather than other agencies. Send that through. Bear in mind, there will be, from most agents, a time lag, because we are getting, and even at the moment, which is wonderful, we are getting quite a few CVs through. But you're our lifeblood. We need that talent out there, so don't feel abashed about doing it. And it may well be, speaking very personally, that within Sara Putt Associates, I would respond by saying, look, I'm probably not taking any clients on at the moment because I've got a pretty big client list, but a couple of my colleagues absolutely are building up their list. So I'm looping them in, and I know they'd be interested to talk to you. Or, we might come back and say, look, at the moment, we don't feel we're able to offer you what you need. And we might suggest another couple of companies. Again, don't feel that's us saying we don't think you're good enough. There's a limit to what we can do and a limit to our capacity as well. So, for instance, if somebody wants to build a career in commercials, we're not the right company for them. So do your research as to what that agency covers and what their client base looks like as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah. Okay, so we're going to be moving on. There's a couple of questions about CVs. And this is something that's quite interesting, actually, that we haven't answered before, is what do you do about a project where where the work looked good? And I assume it's good to have it down on the CV, but you did not get along with the producer/director. Would you erase them from the CV?
I would make sure their names weren't on the CV. If you were working to a head of department, you might want to put that head of department there on the CV instead. If the series producer or the head of production within the company was a fan of yours, put their name. I mean, honestly, if it was a really toxic relationship, and sadly, sometimes through absolutely no fault of your own, then it might have been, I would be wary about putting it on the CV. I think there are some, how do I put this? I think there are some contacts out there that are generally known to be difficult, and therefore it doesn't surprise people if other relationships with that person have been difficult or tricky. But I think just be a bit wary of it. But certainly if you're going to use that credit because it was great material, try and find somebody else within that production, within that company, who you would feel confident about saying good things about you.
Okay, brilliant. And this is another one about CVs. Karen, is asking if you can clarify, is it better to put the mission statement on a covering letter or on your CV?
I think you can do either. I think if you've got space on your CV, it's a great little intro paragraph to have up there. And then you can kind of repeat that, but expand upon it in a covering letter. So yeah, if you feel it's working and you've got the space on the CV, I would absolutely put it up there.
Okay, I'm just trying to find if there's anything else about...
Yes, I'm sorry, just to add to that, because I think the thing that little statement can do is it sort of personalizes what otherwise can just be a list of credits.
Yeah.
It gives a bit of a flavor of you, and I think that's the point of it, really.
Okay, great. And this loops into Stuart Earle's question, is very short sentences that you covered in your presentation. Is that better than long sentences that can have more detail?
I think a longer sentence, if that was sort of by chance rather than necessarily by design. I don't have an issue with sort of longer sentences. what I would suggest just grammatically is don't get into sentences that are so long you get lost inside your own sentence, because I think they're more difficult when you're reading them to get sense out of. The thing about shorter sentences, the thing about bullet points, for example, is it's just easier to access the information. So it's all that I was saying about make it easy. You know, the average person in a production office looking at a CV will give that CV 10, 20 seconds maybe to decide if they like what they're reading and they want to read further. So you've got to grab them. So the easier it is to access the information, the more likely you are to grab their attention.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. And then everyone remember that also comes back to layout and, you know, just having something clean, easy to read, no need for graphs or pie charts or anything like that. Sarah, one of the bottles just burst behind you at the top. Okay, this is a bit of an odd one. I love these webinars. I love the fact that we can have these discussions, and I'm like, wow, that really happened.
I never thought of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so someone has been told by someone senior to them that when starting out, they should not put their title in the CV, that they should leave it open to the employer to decide what I should be, but that they also find that that's not very good because it's too general. Any advice on this will help.
I politely disagree. I suppose if one is writing to a company, to maybe a talent manager or a head of production within a company, and you're at a junior level, so you could be a production trainee, you could be a production runner, you could be an office runner or a production secretary maybe. There may be any manner of roles that you might be able to be eligible for. Then I get where they're coming from, but I still think any head of production, any talent manager, anybody in a company worth their salt will look at your CV that says office runner stroke trainee, and they'll go, okay, this person has this interesting skill set. That's what they are. That's the level they're at. Actually, we need a production runner rather than office runner. So I'm going to suggest to them that they come in for an interview on that. So I think still give people a clue, because otherwise, it's like I said about these piles of CVs. If you're not defining who you are and what role you in essence occupy, you're making somebody else's life much more difficult.
Yeah, something also to be mindful of. I mean, I know that in factual and entertainment, there has been over the last couple of years, probably even a decade actually, where there's been this huge push towards trying to find edit producers and someone who can direct and self-shoot, and you know, all these grades, all these skills are just being morphed into one. And whilst there are people who I think naturally can and have worked hard towards doing it, can do it, you know, if you're working in TV and film, it's kudos if you know what you want to do.
Yeah.
It makes it much easier for productions to find you. It makes it much easier for you to explain what you want to do. And
also to occupy that status of doing it.
Yeah.
Rather than somehow I'm a jack of all trades. You know, this industry is full of amazing skilled professionals. Yes, many of them are multi-skilled, but don't get into, you know, that trap of ending up doing 3 jobs for the price of 1 and a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. That really moves us on quite nicely into a question around what do you do if you're in the middle of stepping up? How do you convey this on social media? This is about second AC and first AC, and you know, and talks about Instagram and tagline, and you know, what would be, I mean, actually we can broadly move on to social media as well, because we covered this last time, didn't we? And I think it's good to go over. But what does one do if you are stepping up or want to step up?
I think, you know, if you have made the decision to step up, then you should be sort of occupying that new title, that first AC title. But I think you can make it clear in your communications, and you would still obviously be including references to all of your credits as a second AC. you can make it clear that you are in that making a move. You're in that transitional stage of moving up. And, you know, I think the point at which you would start declaring and coming out with all of that on social media probably is the point at which you gained that first credit. So you've got at least one credit as a first AC, which is like your springboard into social media and your CV, etc., in kind of announcing to your network. And it's also, moving up is a great reason, you know, when we're talking about reasons to be in contact with your network, and kind of getting in contact with people individually, it's a great reason. You know, I'm really excited to tell you that, you know, I have moved up to first ACing. I've just done my first short film or promo or whatever it might be. You know, as a first AC, I'm sending you an updated copy of my CV. So it's a really great marketing tool, bizarrely, in itself. And then also, as I'm sure you're probably doing, to be asking the advice of other ACs who, you know, all at some point made that move. Go talk to other ACs or operators who've been through second AC, first AC, and into operating. Go ask them how they made the transition, what their journey looked like, and you'll get some interesting advice from them.
Absolutely. Okay, shall we quickly cover the social media and the emojis?
Hold on, I'm no expert in this world.
Yeah, and then we're going to have one final question after this, because it's important. I think it's about going back to that branding, especially where we're at now in terms of networking. So, social media. What do we use and what do we not use? WhatsApp, Instagram, Twitter.
It's absolutely go hang out where the people you want in your network hang out. There is no don't use that about it, but it's don't waste your time spending vast amounts of time tweeting unless the people that you want to build relationships with are on Twitter. So, you know, certainly, like I would say, production designers, makeup artists, DOPs, camera operators, lots on Instagram, showing their work, talking about their work. Follow them, engage with them, direct message them. You know, WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups. Also camera, very much sound, lots of WhatsApp groups. Production, I'd say more LinkedIn at the moment. LinkedIn has become very, very popular. So it's very much about, you know, swimming where the fish you want to swim with swim.
Yeah. Yeah. And something else that we often come up against as well. I mean, I see a lot of this when I do deal with casework, you know, and I get screenshots of what people have sent over WhatsApp. Okay, this can be a rabbit hole. So, you know, you're new in the industry, you're quite young, you're obviously excited about someone that you've worked with, and, you know, it can quickly move away from being a professional, you know, professionally worded email or message into something that's incredibly informal quite quickly. So what you need to be mindful of is, you don't always have to mirror how someone communicates. You communicate in the way that you feel is professional. Do not follow up an evening out or a work event with, you know, hey bro, so great to meet you.
Yes, like answering the phone. It's the same thing. Be professional about it. Yeah. Keep your own boundaries. You know, this is, you know, and that's not to say that, you know, down the line as a long-term thing, friendships don't develop out of your network. Of course they do, and they will. Some of my very, very best friends in the world I have met through this industry. But, you know, that's also a slow burn. You're not somebody's best mate overnight. You know, that's that way, as Neil rightly says, you know, you put them in a difficult position, but you also put yourself in a much more vulnerable and exposed position. Keep it professional, keep it, you know, within boundaries that feel comfortable for you.
Yeah, and boundaries in the other way as well. You know, we make mistakes. And Sarah, like you and I have spoken on numerous other panels about this, that it's okay to make mistakes, but you need to own up to them. And the way by which you own up to them is really also vital. Just be clear, tell someone what's happened, tell someone what you know, what you've done, apologize, just make it clear that you're sorry that it's happened. Yeah. But there's also no need to profusely apologize, because I think when we're new in any job, you know, our position is that one of like submission. Yeah. And this word sorry, especially for women as well, it's something that can really affect you in a long-term way. And so instead of saying sorry, you can often say, oh, thank you so much for highlighting that. I'll do it in a different way next time. You know, so you're making it clear that you are grateful to that person who has highlighted the mistake, but you're also coming up to a level with them where you professionally, you know, professionally on the same level, and it's not that relationship of, you know, sub and dom.
Yes,
submissive and dom.
Absolutely. And I would completely echo that, Nia. And also, it shouldn't be about apologizing if you've made a mistake. So, which is why I think your phraseology is really good, because everybody makes mistakes. It's just, as you say, you're learning, you're going through a learning process. Children at school make mistakes. That's how they learn. They're not being told to apologize because they don't spell the word yacht correctly first time. Mm-hmm. I still can't spell the word yacht. So, you know, this association of making a mistake in the course of learning and apologizing, I think is a very philosophical conversation, but I think that is a mismatch anyway. And I just think the two should not be connected. You should apologize if you have maliciously and willfully done something cruel or unpleasant to somebody. Absolutely. Then you should be profusely apologizing, but not because you've made a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, final question. This is going back to the branding. What is the best way to brand? I mean, we have so much available to us now. You know, like you said, there's LinkedIn. It's so easy to create a website these days. Squarespace is an absolute godsend. You know, what is the best way to brand ourselves, would you say?
I mean, I think keep it simple. I think it like we were saying about social media, it depends where you want to create an impression. What I would say about websites, and it is so much easier to create them, but people, you know, and I see this with clients, they spend a lot of time and heartache and sometimes money creating this perfect website, which sits there in splendid isolation in cyberspace. How do you get people to watch it? How are you then going to drive traffic to that website? Is it for the moment better just to be sending people a couple of password protected links to work on YouTube or Vimeo?
Yeah.
Work out where your effort is best spent. And in terms of your brand, I think it is, who are you? It's that combination, as I said right at the beginning, of your skill set and your talent and what you offer to the industry in a technical way, but also what it is you care about, what it is inspires you, the kind of director of photography or production designer or producer you want to be. You know, that some of my most successful clients, you know, I have many wonderful clients, and some of the most successful ones who have a particular stance in the industry. You know, I have one producer and she cares passionately about projects around diversity and disability. You know, she set up her own little production company as well as working, you know, on big shows as a producer for hire. And she has a really distinct and clear brand. She's very forthright, she's very straightforward. And that, in marketing terms, and she didn't do it cynically, it is who she is, but it makes it very easy to define who she is. I think we all, again, sometimes feel we should be all things to all people. And we can't. We're who we are, and we should be proud of that. So your brand should just be authentic to who you are, really.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah. We will also close on, if you're new into the industry which you may be, or even if you're returning, or, you know, even if you've been here forever. A few key things: always be a good ally, always know what the rates are. Don't undercut someone who's already been working in the industry for 20 years, who has worked incredibly hard behind the scenes to get those rates where they are. Make sure you understand what agreements are available to you. So the Bectu packed agreements, that is major motion picture and TV drama. And we also have ones with the BBC covering serial and series as well. There is a wealth of information out there, but there is also a huge structure that you're going into, and as you should learn as much as possible about that structure if you can, because it will mean that you're informed, and being informed is professional.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, thank you so much, Sara Putt.
Thank you guys for turning up. Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. So someone's just put in the chat function, actually, before everyone goes, that there's a great book about the apologies topic, Why Won't You Apologize, by Harriet Lerner. So,
oh, fantastic. Thank you.
Cut and paste that.
Lovely.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, have a good day. Get out in the sunshine. Bye.
Okay, bye.